All right. Hello, everybody. I am Martha Hines, and I am here today with Sheridan Semple. And I think we're both already really lit up about this, this conversation. So for those of you who don't know Sheridan, I think probably a lot of you already do know Sheridan, but Sheridan is an alchemical astrologer, and I'm gonna ask her what that exactly means because it's a new term, I think, for you. And among other things. So you're also an artist, and you also work with essential oils, and those of you listening might know Sheridan from a couple of different places. I mean, first of all, you might just know Sheridan because you know Sheridan. Second of all, you might know Sheridan from Venus Alchemy, working with Kaylin Castell. Sheridan and Kaylin currently are doing the Venus Alchemy work together. Sheridan also was part of the Rebecoming the One symposium that I hosted in 2022, the first one, and you did such a beautiful talk in that symposium about the Venus cycle, and I will link that video with this video because I highly recommend it for anybody who wants just an overview, really aesthetically beautiful and really beautiful explanation of the Venus cycle. It's like one of the best explanations I've seen, actually, honestly. Still. So yeah, so that's there. And Sheridan, also you have been on Astrology Hub a couple years in a row. Is that right? You're one of what do you call it? One of their guides. So
yeah, I'm a guide of the inner circle this coming year, like the cycle that we're in, but I'm an astrologer for them as well. And so that's why I've been on like the podcast and different things like that. Yeah.
beautiful. So yeah, so people might know you from all of these different places and maybe many more. So yeah, so the overarching topic that Sheridan and I think are feeling lit up about discussing, I think I can sum it up by saying what I'm personally feeling in my body is like the Leo sun of my heart is just going, like I can just feel it like shining. And so something that I have been doing this past 2-3 months is I have actually been taking the Venus Alchemy ceremony series with Sheridan and Kaylin. And I did a video with Kaylin talking about the Venus cycle just before I signed up for that course. And one thing that we know from Sheridan and Kaylin's beautiful knowledge is that we are currently in the beginning of a Leo meta goddess Venus cycle, right? And we can get into more what that is, what that means. But Sheridan and I both happen to natally, or somewhat natally for Sheridan, definitely natally for me, I was born in a Leo Venus meta goddess cycle. So one of the big topics in that Leo Venus energy is self-empowerment, self-actualization, shining our light, our Leo light, and then holding space for all of us to shine that light. And so I think that's one of these topics that lights me up, and I think Sheridan lights you up, that we really want to have a conversation about the astrology in this time and how it's both supporting us to shine our light in that way, and how we can choose to approach the astrology of this time in a way that's self-empowering. Is that cool? Okay, so Sheridan, I just said a lot of things. Yeah, can we start with what is alchemical astrology? And I think this leads into some of these other things I was just naming, but I would love to hear, you're now calling yourself an alchemical astrologer. So what is that and why?
Yeah. So credit where credit is due. Kaylin is the one who coined that term. And started calling herself that. And I was like, oh yeah, that is what we do. I'm going to copy you. I asked her, I was like, can I copy you and use that same term? And, it came to her, obviously she could tell the story, but it kind of came to her of like, what are the two things that she really does and has always done throughout her life is alchemy and astrology, right? And here we have Venus alchemy together, we're astrologers. And so it just resonates, right? And so what is it? What does it mean? Why is Venus alchemy called Venus alchemy? But it's the idea of alchemy is, in a nutshell, is about that transformation, that transformative process from like what I like to call like our little selves into our grander soul selves, right? And for me, that's so much of really what astrology is about and provides for us, is that ability to move out of just like little personality, Sheridan, focus on what I'm going to have for lunch today and the work I got to do, like on the mundane level world, into trying to connect into understanding my soul path, why I'm here, how I'm here to grow, my evolutionary process to reconnect with my soul, right? My soul self. So alchemical astrology to me encapsulates that. It's about that journey of growth, transformation, healing process to realign ourselves, our energy, our vibration with our higher selves, our soul selves as our expression. And I think astrology is a phenomenal way to help us do that.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Beautiful. So before we started recording, and actually also a couple of weeks ago when we just got together just to catch up and chat, we were discussing, we realized that we both have this really strong passion for approaching our work, approaching our relationship with astrology, our relationship with our clients, our relationship with life in a way that is self-empowering, that is empowering for others, that really, I think this comes to the Leo theme, right? That really is, I want to say positive, but not positive in a a dissociative sense, positive in a grounded sense, and that is really celebratory of each of our individual soul selves, our soul wisdom, our soul knowing what we're here to be doing on the planet. And I think I would love to hear your thoughts on this, but I think what we were both feeling is a sense that sometimes when we look at what's happening in the world, when we look at the transits coming, when we look at even the way that transits are approached in astrology, it can feel pretty daunting and it can feel pretty overwhelming and disempowering depending on how it's all approached. So I'd love to hear in your words, I mean, what is currently feeling the most alive and important to you as we're sitting here on the planet in this moment of November 9th, 2023. And I'm immediately thinking of what's going on in the sky right now, that it's probably related to what you're about to say, but I want to hear it in your words. What is important?
Well, before I even like say, well, this will start it and then maybe we could get more into the specifics. But I think that it's like so much of what happens with astrology can be like that looking of like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, and obviously really intense things are happening on the planet, right? And have been for quite a while, and looks like it's going to continue for a while, right? So for me, it's about like, it's a both and situation, right? So when we see what's happening, there's always the opportunity to kind of drop down into the mundane aspects of it, or go into the more spiritual, empowering, opportunity, vibrational aspects of it. And it's not an either or, right? It's a both and. And I think why we see so much playing out in the physical real world, shall we say, the middle world of that like shamanic idea of like the underworld, the middle world, and the celestial world, why we see so much playing out in that middle world that is so intense is because we're really afraid to, it's that idea of like, we're afraid of our light, but we've got to get there from like our darkness. We're afraid of the shadow. We're afraid of the underworld. We want to bypass all that and go straight from middle world, like total chaos, to just like elated celestial world bliss, right? But all three worlds are there. So we've got to go from, in my perspective, from that alchemical idea, we've got to go down into the underworld, look at the shadow, look at the things we don't want to look at because we're so busy distracting ourselves through like scrolling or eating or drinking or whatever kind of things that we all do at times to distract ourselves from dealing with what's in the shadow. And now that's just coming out sideways everywhere, all across the planet, right? All the time. And so it's that not wanting to look at those hard things to heal, that's what actually brings us into the bliss, right? It's kind of like that Scorpio idea of like, we got to go down into the cave and do the excavation so we can rise like the phoenix into that celestial world place. And so it's that both and, right? That it's all happening simultaneously. We feel so disempowered because we're just bleeding our power off in all these ways by not wanting to face like the stuff that hurts and is hard and our wounds, so we can heal and have this consciousness shift collectively that we're just like denying and actively not engaging with, right? So I don't know if that's exactly what you're asking, but that was like the first thing that came to mind of like, how do we get to that place of not feeling disempowered and overwhelmed? We've got to look at like all our stuff so we can move into a higher vibration. We can have the alchemical transformation.
Yes, I'm thinking in this moment where right now we have Mars in Scorpio with the sun in Scorpio, and actually also Ceres in Scorpio, right? And we're going to be having a new moon in Scorpio with Mars conjunct the new moon in Scorpio and Uranus opposite that new moon, which anybody could look at, anybody who knows astrology could look at and get pretty freaked out. And when I think about what you're saying, I'm thinking also of Mars. And I mean, there's so many layers to any of these planets, but something I really have sat with a lot about Mars is the misconception of Mars being a linear energy, like that Mars energy starts and goes, and then it kind of is like a laser that like never ends or something, right? But that's not the case, because Mars, just like any other planet, has a cycle. Then it comes around, it comes back. So something that Heather Ensworth talks a lot about in her work is Mars energy going out, but coming back to be of service. So if I think of Mars in that way, Mars in Scorpio, I'm thinking, it's just dawning on me. And I'm thinking of your work with the Venus cycle, and actually that first interview that you and I did where we talked about the Venus underworld journey and how important the underworld is. So I'm thinking of Mars being in Scorpio, and in the current moment of the Mars cycle is, I mean, being conjunct the sun. I'm not an expert at all in the Mars cycle, but would Mars currently be in its own underworld moment then?
Yes.
Yep,
exactly.
okay.
The Kazemi is the, pinnacle of it, which is like on the 17th, I think I have to look. Yeah. The Sun Kazemi, Mars Kazemi, however you want to say it, is on the 17th. So yes, in Scorpio, all the things. Yeah.
Right. So it's like Mars is in Scorpio in the underworld. Yes. So yes, mega underworld themes with Mars right now. And right. So what if one way we could think of this configuration being that, okay, our Mars energy, that part that's going to maybe be going out, adventuring, protecting us in a sense, maybe it's going to the underworld to help clear the path in some sense or something. I'm making this up. This is just one way of thinking of it, right? But then it's in service of what? Exactly what you just said, helping us do that underworld journey so that we can do the whole life cycle, not just get stuck and stagnant in one place, or do a linear trajectory that where we never come back. You know, yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts about any of that, but
Yeah, no, I agree with you, right? So Mars in the underworld to me, and in Scorpio especially, right? It's not in like Aries, it's in Scorpio that this is happening. I mean, Mars is going to be in the underworld until like January or something. So we're going to go through some other signs. But here we are in the Cazimi, the exact Sun Mars conjunction, the middle of the underworld, shall we say. And you could even say the middle of the Mars cycle is like all happening here in Scorpio. And so what's Scorpio, right? That's a very underworld, also celestial world, but underworld kind of planet that wants to like go digging in the compost and the heaviness of stuff, right? The intensity. And Mars there, a divine masculine planet. I feel like there's such a huge offering here for us to look at the underworld, the shadow side of our masculine expression, which we all have, I feel, regardless of how we identify. And so, and same for the feminine, right? We have all these pieces, parts. And I think, you know, mostly we could all agree that the masculine has just been in a very unhealthy place for a long time, and the feminine too, right? So how do we help heal that, right? We want to create a new system for us to live under that isn't patriarchal. Mars in the underworld in Scorpio, with all of this happening opposite Uranus, right? How perfect. Like the terms that you used in your Scorpio new moon video about Uranus, the intelligence of the universe, right? All of that, the celestial world planet of Uranus, like, is like the opportunity is to work on healing some aspect of that within ourselves, right? We're not going to do it all while Mars is in the underworld, but if we could each just tackle a little piece part for ourselves that helps us to heal and not be distracting and in denial and running away from the wound of that masculine that we all carry. Oh my gosh, like that's transformation. That's one more step towards our soul selves, right? That's one more step in bringing the masculine into a healthier place. Interestingly, while Venus is in Libra, right, who is like the peacemaker and wants harmony and balance, right? That's a whole other topic of like the feminine that needs healing. But it's like those two working together can like really help. If we address just a little bit within ourselves, we can come out the other side with a more exalted vibration of the masculine and the feminine, which is the only way we're going to get there. You know, it's going to be like pieces, steps, healing one wound at a time and reclaiming our power. So we're not like spending all our time scrolling or whatever it is that's distracting us from what's really going on inside.
yeah, and I'm thinking, of course, that Mars currently, I don't think you used the word ruling, but Mars, my words would be, is ruling the current North Node. What terminology do you use?
Like
You say resonance?
resonance energy. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So Mars is in the resonance energy with the North Node. That's how you say it. Okay.
Yeah. But you
Yeah.
can use rulership. I'm
No,
okay
no,
with
no.
that.
I tried to. It's like, going between different languages, and it's awesome. It's so
Yeah.
cool. So, right. So anyway, so Mars has this very strong relationship right now to the North, the current transiting North Node for all of us. And And so in so many ways, we have the North Node heading toward Chiron too. So there's this really, really strong, powerful energy right now and coming up in 2024, certainly about helping us to heal our relationship to that Mars Aries energy. And I actually have this personal example that I haven't felt like I wanted to share on my own videos, but it's coming up and I'll just share it because I don't
Please do.
know. It's really interesting. So my South Node is in Aries. I'm currently having my exact nodal reversal. So the North Node currently is exactly on my South Node. And my Venus is in Aries on my South Node. So I have very, very strong Aries energy myself. And as a lot of people in my community know, I used to, my old career was as a clinical social worker, and I worked, my last job in social work was in the child welfare, the child protective services. So very traumatic, very trauma filled world. and on these eclipses that we just had, I was having my precise to the minute nodal reversal. So really interesting. And I was like, what there's something I'm going to need to like let go of, or, there's some way that something is going to come up from my past, or just, I'm going to need to release something. I could just see it. It's like super obvious in the astrology. Right. And I was like, and I was expecting it to be maybe something related to a past relationship or something, because again, my Venus was involved, right? The new moon eclipse was exactly opposite my Venus. Anyway, that's not what happened. What happened is super interesting and actually ended up being really, really beautiful. So I left that job 4.5 years ago, and long story short, in the middle of that eclipse season that we just had, I got a knock on my door from an investigator. Again, long story short, essentially, I was asked to potentially testify in a case, like a 5-year-old case from my old job. And the case that was pretty traumatic, right? And because they all were. So when this first happened, I did not exactly feel happy about it. I didn't want to have to go back into that whole world. I didn't want to go back and testify on the stand. I've been there, done that so many times, and I left that world for good reasons. And I'm doing what I'm doing now because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I didn't really want to go backward, right? It's so classic, like nodal reversal. Hang on a second. I'm where I am. I'm not back there. Anyway, so I sat with, okay, what is this? Like, clearly something is there's an opportunity here for me to be switching my relationship to this Aries Libra thing. And again, long story short, what I ended up coming to when I went into really deep ceremony with it in myself was, I had this sudden realization that I come from a long line of people who have been living actually in war zones. I was, born in Thailand, lived in Bangladesh and Pakistan as a child, and my family has been in South Asia for over 100 years. And so a lot of my family has lived in areas of the world where there either currently was war going on, or there had just been war, whatever it was, but to be of service, right? So it suddenly dawned on me that I have this message in myself, or I've had this message in myself, that first of all, I'm here to be of service. That's true. That's absolutely true. And that's part of what the positive end of an Aries energy can be. But I also had equated in myself being of service to also being in danger. And it suddenly clicked for me, wait a second, no, right? So anyway, so I had this really deep transformational moment in the ceremony in myself. And the next day, I got a call saying that the trial had been canceled. I was like, oh my goodness. So anyway, it was, for me, it felt like like this major shift in my own relationship to, if you want to call it the masculine energy in me, but I would call it more of just the Mars Aries energy in me, of what is that energy that's present so strongly as me to be of service, to protect. I mean, truly, like I literally was protecting children. I want to do that. Certainly, that's a value of mine to do that. And yet that Mars energy, that Aries energy can come with violence, can come with danger, actual real danger. And I feel like even on a collective level, maybe we are partly clearing that up, like distinguishing that we don't need to be in danger or in violence or have that in our field, in a sense, to be of service. Like that they're different valences of a similar energy. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's a long story, but somehow it felt
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. There's an alchemical, I mean, that's such a perfect example of an alchemical transformation right there, and facing that and going and looking at that. And I like how you brought up too, like shifting that place, right? Of like we talked about before, the kind of like the stereotypes that we put the masculine and the feminine in, right? The Mars is this, warring, aggressive, like the protector, but it's in a dangerous, warring kind of a place, right? That it's like, no, that's not necessarily what Mars is about, right? Mars can be all the things. Mars is just as valid in Pisces as the healer as it is as in Aries as the warrior. We just tend to limit it to being only the warrior aspect. So what a great, what a whole shift on a multitude of levels right there, which is so, thank you for sharing that. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean it's even clicking with me even right now as we're talking, that right, that I think on a collective level we group together all these qualities of the Aries Mars energies as the one thing, as though, Mars is violence, Mars is scary things, Mars is action, like it's all one thing, and it's inevitable that it will all go together. And I'm realizing it's like filaments of something, right, that we can separate them apart, and it doesn't mean that we ostracize one or part or another, but we can recognize that they're not necessarily all the same thing. And something you said before we started recording is that you said something along the lines of you put this in your own words, but I'll paraphrase what I think you said. We talk a lot about wanting to move away from the patriarchy, but then when we approach the energies, for example, of Mars and Venus, we continue to put them in the box of the patriarchy. Can you reframe that in your own words? But that was
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it makes me crazy, right? So it's like, here we are talking about this and like this evolution that we want to have. And then we go, Mars is malefic, Venus is, I don't know, benefic. Is that like the right word? Is a malefic and, is like bad, and Venus is good, right? Venus is beauty and love and relationships, and Mars is like fighting and aggression and war, right? And it's like, wow, are you catching like this? Like you're just putting him in those patriarchal boxes, right? So it's like that traditional astrology perspective that comes from the Hellenistic time, which was an extremely patriarchal society. I mean, in a huge way. All you have to do is look at like the mythology, right? I mean, all the goddesses were getting conscripted to like serve the new god. I mean, it's just on and on and on. But we cling to that in our how we name the planets and then how we see them, right? So it's the same thing. It's like Venus can be the warrior and she can get really angry. She can be Kali, she can be Sekhmet, right? Mars can be like the healer, the Pisces, right? It's like we keep those limitations of those stereotypes in place by keeping those limitations in place, right? It's like, let's let the feminine have her fullest expression, and let's have the masculine have his fullest expression, so that we can come into a whole place where we honor and respect all of, right, the soul selves of Mars and Venus, and not be just limited to these tight little boxes that just keep the same system in place that we're saying we want to change and bring into a different vibration. Yeah, that makes me crazy with astrology. It's like,
I
like,
second
oh,
it.
a Mars thing is going to be bad for you, and a Venus thing is going to be so awesome, right? But it happens with all of them. Like, oh, we're terrified of a Pluto cycle. Well, like, Pluto cycles can be like beautiful and amazing and help you like transform and heal and clear things out. Like, yeah, let's just start looking at like opportunity. It's a vibration, like you say, you know?
And Saturn too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, yeah. That,
Yeah.
yeah. Don't even
Like
get
I
me.
was noticing for myself that next year there, well, for all of us next year, there's going to be a Mars Saturn conjunction at 1415 Pisces, which happens to be on my sun, right? And so I mean, even me, like I'm so anti seeing things this way, but even I went like, why did I do that? You
Yeah.
know?
Well, you make a great example, because this is the system that we've learned under, and we're just trying to unravel it. But we're going to do that through our whole entire lives, right? So we are going to see it, catch ourselves, you know? It's like, that's such a great example. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And then, so then that brings me to thinking about what's actually happening in the sky today with Venus. So do you want to talk about that? Because that's a whole beautiful, wonderful topic.
Yeah. So it's like the flip side of what we've been talking about too, in a lot of ways, because Venus just moved into Libra, right? So Venus just crossed that September equinox point, right? Where the sun becomes, where we have the equinox when the sun reaches 0 Libra. Venus just reached that point yesterday in the Priestess constellation. And then the moon followed her in there, and then they met together in the sky this morning. It's like a beautiful sight. It was snowing here, but we had a little break in the storm, and I went outside early and like got to see them, and I felt so fortunate. So following the most ancient myth we have written down on those clay cuneiform tablets from ancient Sumer, modern day Middle East, Iraq, is the story of Inanna, the queen of heaven and earth, right? And she goes on this descent to the underworld. And archaeoastronomers have figured out that myth is an actual telling of the Venus cycle, right? So just a little background to what we're going to talk about. So each month, the moon meets with Venus, and it signifies one of the 7 gates that Inanna had to go through, Venus had to go through to get to the underworld, which is when Venus and the sun meet together. So this morning, the moon meeting with Venus signified we've moved into the throat chakra gate, right? Those gates that we move through, connecting them to the chakras. We're moving through the throat chakra. So it's a month of the descent. I mean, the morning star time is a descent to the underworld, where we release and we let go of things that are blocking or have created distortions around the fullest expression of our chakras. So this month is now about the throat chakra. So like, what are things that are preventing our speaking up or speaking our truth, or just voicing who we are and ourselves, right? Keeping quiet, stuffing that down, holding ourselves back, and how perfect it's happening in Libra, which is not every cycle. The third throat chakra would be while we're in Libra, which is just like what we were saying, right? So Libra and Venus have this resonant energy. And part of that is because we go, oh, Venus, the feminine, is like happy in a sign that's about relationships and is like the peacemaker and is about harmony, and will even like completely compromise herself to like keep the status quo happy and like shut herself down, right? So it's like, yeah, Mars is going through the underworld cycle, and now Venus, Libra at the throat chakra is like, oh wow, I think the feminine is ready to like clear out the crap that prevents her from like speaking up for herself, right? Being in relationship, understanding ourselves through relationship, but not giving all the power to the other person, right? Where it's like, oh, I see what you're showing me, but that's not really me, or that makes me understand myself better, and I step more into my power and I can voice that, right? So I'm like, yay, let's have all this stuff happen together, because what can we do over this month to clear something out that helps us to voice ourselves more clearly in Libra, in our relationships, and how we see ourselves through that mirror reflection of our relationships. So I'm like, yay.
Beautiful. Yes, absolutely. And then Venus will come to the the transiting south node in Libra also. And when is the next chakra gate happening, and where? Do you know that off the top of your head? If you don't, that's totally fine.
No, but I have it like right. It's in December for the heart chakra, and I can tell you right now. I have it in my calendar, but I know I've got a form right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, December 9th is
Mm-hmm.
the heart chakra in
So
Scorpio.
that's when, just for people to understand, so that's when Venus will come together with the moon again the next time, as she's making her way. She's a morning star Venus right now.
Yes.
And we're going down through the chakras as she meets with the moon each time.
Yes. Yep. Each month when they meet together, that signifies, from that original myth, signifies moving through one of those gates. And then we've connected that with the chakras. So yeah, so we'll go to the heart, then we'll go to the solar plexus, down to the sacral and the root. And then we have an additional earth star chakra this time, the one beneath our feet. Then Venus will meet with the sun in the underworld, just like Mars is right now, right? Traveling on the other side of the sun. And then she'll be reborn into the evening sky, and she'll be an evening star. And then we start the ascent, coming back up from the root all the way back up, each moon Venus conjunction each month, until we go out the crown and up the top, and then the new Venus cycle starts again.
Right. And that new Venus cycle will start in spring of 2025, correct? Because it's
yes, it will be like March of 2025. Yeah, because it's like Pisces Aries. Yeah, depending upon how you slice it, it's a Pisces Aries cycle, or Aries Pisces cycle starting
coming next.
Yep.
Yeah. So something that you and I have talked about is that so for anybody listening who doesn't understand the Venus cycle in the way that Sheridan and Kaylin do it, listen to the video that I did with you, Sharon, which again I will link with this video, and I will also link the video I recently did with Kaylin. Both videos explain the Venus cycle in more depth, so I don't feel like we need to go into it all right here, but I'm sure there are people listening who don't know about it, so I'm going to put those videos right here for you. Go listen to them. But on a very simple level, the way that you talk about the Venus cycle is that not only are we each born with Venus in a particular sign, like I was born with my Venus in Aries, but we also were born with within a 19-month bigger Venus cycle. So for all of us now in this time in November of 2023, we just had a new 19-month Venus cycle that started in August of 2023, right? Mm-hmm. That new cycle began in Leo. So the what you call the meta goddess of this 19-month Venus cycle is in Leo. And when I was born, even though my Venus was actually in Aries the moment I was born at the very, 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 very tail end of a 19-month meta goddess Venus in Leo cycle. So I'm heading toward my precise Venus return in March of 2025, when this current Venus in Leo cycle is going to be at its very, very end. And we're currently at the beginning of it, right? So, yes. Yeah. And you were born so complicated. Do you want to explain your version?
Sure. And one thing I'll just add to what you said. So, right, we were just talking about Venus being in Libra right now, right? So that's the sign that Venus is in right now. But she's still, you could think of it as like in service, or there's another layer of a Venus Leo full cycle, right? So Venus in Libra right now is still under that umbrella of the Leo Venus cycle, because that's the sign that the Venus was in when the cycle started, right? So just to kind of like anchor that into what we were just talking about. So Martha is describing she's in a Venus return that happens every 8 years when you have your birthday and you come back to the same Sun-Venus relationship happens in the same signs right around your birthday, and you're in your same cycle of that meta goddess, right? So anybody who's turning like a division of 8 in this 19-month cycle, 8, 16, 24, right, is in this a Venus return. And I am as well, just like Martha is, right? So I'm 8 years older than Martha, and I am having my Venus return as well. I have Venus in Cancer, but I have that Leo meta goddess as well. I don't think I'll go into like, I was born at like the end of a Virgo cycle that's morphed into a Leo cycle, but Leo is my meta goddess now as well, right? And I'm in the underworld time. So I'm going to have my birthday this upcoming summer, and that'll be like my exact Venus return within this whole 19-month cycle as well. So it's like Martha has Venus in Aries, but like serving this larger Leo divinity empowerment kind of a place. My Venus is in Cancer, underworld, right? Serving that empowerment through the alchemical process, right? It's no big surprise that I call myself an alchemical astrologer, right? It's that same idea.
Yeah. And not to complicate things, but I was born at the 8th chakra gate. So,
at the end.
Yeah. The very, very, very end, when Venus is going back up. Anyway, we don't need to get into all of that, but also anybody who knows me would see that it's like, it makes sense. Yes. Channeling and blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but what I think, again, is really, really fascinating is when I learned that I not only have my Venus in Aries, but I also am born in this Leo meta goddess cycle. That made so much sense. I mean, number one, because not surprisingly, I really resonate with Leo energy. My Venus trines Leo, right? So when I meet people who have Venus in Leo or Mars in Leo, it's like very resonant. So that makes sense just in and of itself. But even thinking about me, I don't have a lot of energy in Leo. I have my Saturn in Leo. So actually, in a way, my Leo energy has been a little bit muted. Like it's taken me a while to open up to my Leo energy. And like now I talk on YouTube channel and do all that kind of thing. And like, here I am embodying the Leo energy, but it took kind of prodding for me to get there, right? But once I get into it, I love it. And it feels so good. But what feels so good to me about it, I do love just the shining feeling of it. But what I really love, like what actually makes me cry, for real makes me cry, is the feeling of being that sun that can then help to light up the suns of everybody else, right? Like that is real Leo energy to me. Yeah. And it's like, I can
Totally.
start crying right now. Like,
Yeah.
oh my
No,
God.
right. I'm getting like
Yeah.
bumps all over my body. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And it feels so um uncannily, and probably not a coincidence, related to what I'm feeling called to be doing in the world. And I think what you've talked about feeling called to do in the world. And so I can just name a little bit about what that is for me, but then I would love to hear from you too. Is it's like everything that the spirit world is saying to me, my eighth chakra channeling, spirit world speaking through me. It's all about this. It's all about um I'm here to be holding space for each person's divine self, basically to rebirth back into the world, so that we can each shine in the way that the world needs us to be shining, right? So I'm not here to be a talking head or a guru who gives the answers. I'm here to be holding it. It feels so Leo, like so, but in this particular way. Maybe it's a Virgo Leo combination or something, I don't know. Yeah, that I am here absolutely to hold the light so that all of the lights can light up. So we all can light. We all can be lights, right? Yeah.
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 Wow. That's so
Yeah.
cool. I
But I
love
think it's
that.
similar. So, I mean, how does that compare to how you feel in your role in the world? And um
Yeah. What I really feel like I'm here to do is really similar to what you're saying. It's like, I really want, what I'm here to do is like empower everyone to like really step into their own divine nature, right? To connect to their soul self with that deep self-love and self-reverence that is Leo, right? When we know that we are the divine, but to do that in a way that's like encouraging and supporting the empowerment through going through the underworld process, turning and facing the things that we're scared of and we don't want to look at, so that we can free that energy to connect into our divine place. Because when we're busy distracting ourselves, we can't get there, and we're giving our power away. And I want to help everyone, include myself included, right? I'm not putting myself above this in any way, like empower all of us to be our soul selves. And that's how I think we really can make the change that we all want and we're talking about. But it takes that work, that excavation process to get there.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, beautiful. Yes.
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 Wholehearted Leo,
I
yes.
know. I know. And I just want to emphasize for everybody that energy that Sheridan and I are both feeling, and like I just literally could cry from it. I mean, it's so, oh my God. Um it's in us because I mean, it's there for each of us individually, but it's what's going on collectively right now, right? This we really are being held in this time, this space, to be birthing these beautiful soul gifts that we are onto the planet. Literally every single one of you, every single one of us, that is what's actually, I feel it. I get told that in my prayers every day so powerfully, so strongly. Yeah.
And I think that's why we're seeing simultaneously so much chaos and intensity happening, right? Because sometimes it can be like, well, how do we reconcile both of these things being present? And part of that is because it's showing us how much we haven't been doing that, right? And how much we stop ourselves from doing that because we're just seeing the intensity, and hopefully that ramps to a place where we all go, oh wow, okay, I'm ready to like face myself in all the hard places, so that we can come through and break out and have that light shine that you're talking about, right? So it's like, that's the place where we can like both and are happening simultaneously. Yeah.
Actually, yes. Yes. And I mean, again, I'll just refer to my recent situation that I just mentioned as an example. Yeah. And I think sometimes, like that example, there can be things that, in my experience, I never would have thought of. It never would have crossed my mind that that was a key thing that I needed to essentially unhook in myself, right? To like go into that underworld journey place in me, let Mars like go down almost like with a shovel and like dig it out for me, of that I had this message that I needed to be in danger, quote unquote, in order to be of service. Wait a minute. On what? No, 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 no. Mm-mm. Let's let that one go, because no. Right, but it never even dawned on me. I never would have consciously gone there. It only came to me when I went deep, deep, deep into ceremony in myself. That's the only way I got to that moment. Yeah, so it could be completely surprising, which is, anyway, interesting. Yeah. And beautiful. And then it's in service of what, for me, again, speaking of just for myself, I really could feel the spirit world saying, hey, we need you to be so 1000% present as the full earth and light being that is you. Let everything else go. So that was one of the sort of remnants that needed to just go. It needed to go. And that was the Scorpio stuff. I could just feel it, you know. So it was a gift. And it didn't feel great in the moment, but it was a gift. It was.
Yeah. Right. And now you have all that energy free to do what you're here to do. Right.
Yeah.
Which is like, yeah, right. It's not entangled with that ancestral, current, present life, all the past stuff. Right. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I feel so much more free. That's actually precisely what I feel in myself. Like I can energetically just, it's like the light can just flow.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Amazing. That's so cool. It reminds me of like in Venus Alchemy, we're doing a couple of free book clubs. So if anybody's like interested, you're welcome to like join. It's free at any time. And we're doing one on Sekhmet, Transformation in the Belly of the Goddess by Nikki Scully, which is really about going through, because Sekhmet, the lioness goddess, we're in the Leo meta goddess cycle. So it's about like an alchemical healing process, just like exactly like what you're describing, right? A way to like track and going through this process with Sekhmet to be freed on the other side. It's really beautiful. And that one's one that you can, it's like, there's no set reading. You just come to the group having done as much or as little of the book as you feel called to, and you're on, because it's like an alchemical healing process. So you should just follow it at your own pace. But we meet together and we talk and share about our own experiences and what's happening for us as we're going through this book. And it's free. So it's, you're welcome to join.
Yes. And so do you actually want to talk a little bit about your Venus Alchemy offerings and let everybody know? Yeah. And anything else you want to share about your
So you can find everything that Kaylin and I are doing with Venus Alchemy at venusalchemy.com. So everything's on there. You could sign up for like the Sekhmet book group. We're also doing that Unplugging the Patriarchy book group by Lucia Renee. And we've read some of it, but everybody's at different rates, so don't feel like you'd need to have read as much as we're caught up to, because not everyone will be there. So we've all lived under the patriarchy. You'll have plenty to come and share at the group, regardless if you've only read the introduction and nothing else, So, and then we're also, like Martha was sharing, we're in a Leo meta goddess ceremonial journey where we come together every month and we teach about what's going on with the astrology around, like, we just had our throat chakra gate and we do ceremony and set our intention for this as a group collectively all together. And you can join that at any time as well. So we'd love to have you if you feel called.
Yeah. And that is one of the things I am currently taking with you. And and one thing I love in that, among other things, is how you incorporate stars, you incorporate the constellations, you're bringing in so many different layers of all of it, the whole experience of it. It's really, really beautiful. And I love you and I love Kaylin so much both. So it's like,
We love you.
ah, treat, 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 win, 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 win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Is there anything else that you feel left unsaid, and or anything coming up? I don't know, just looking ahead even into next year, is there anything else that you feel like that needs to be spoken to, or a hope you have, or
Just
anything?
Yeah, I would just say, like, kind of reiterating what we said, like, don't be afraid of any of it. Use all of it as an opportunity for your growth and healing, even the things that we see out in the world that feel not like part of our immediate everyday life, right? It's still something that's happening for all of us. And it's always an opportunity for that alchemical transformation. And that I feel like what you're saying, it's like, the spirit world is, everything's happening for us, not to us, trying to help us grow and transform. And approaching it from that place, I think is very empowering. Like, I just want everyone to like become more empowered and like love themselves and step into like their full soul spirit selves. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. And I would just add in that even when it feels like there's no positive way to see something happening, like, because there are a lot of those. Another way that I love the work that you do, and also that feels really important, the work that I do, is even if we can't feel like, okay, that was a good thing, I do feel like we can approach it in a way that we can hold it in a healing space, and we can hold it in a healing, with a healing intention, right? As opposed to the fear and the just reacting with recoiling or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And what is this trying to like teach me and show me? And how can I grow through this? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
beautiful.
thank you.
Thank you for all that you do. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to more, because I know there's going to be more. And yeah, I appreciate you so much, Sheridan.
Yeah, me too. I really appreciate everything that you're doing. And I'm really excited for all the things that you're doing and are coming, and all the resonant energy between us. And I'm excited to see where this all goes for us. So thank you.
Absolutely. All of the above. Yes.
Yay.